Last fall, I reviewed 2 of the new EcoFlow River 2 series power stations, but the largest model, the Pro right here, wasn't yet ready for prime time. This product has now hit the virtual retail shelves, and it's time to see, is it any good? Let's find out.
HOBOTECH.
Now for clarification, the River 2 series consists of 3 different products. The base 256 watt-hour River 2, the 512 watt-hour River 2 Max, and this, the 768 watt-hour River 2 Pro. Since I've already reviewed the smallest 2 models in the lineup, we're going to solely focus on the Pro version today. The River 2 Pro sports a 768 watt-hour lithium iron phosphate battery rated at 3,000 cycles to 80% capacity. As for the size and weight, it's approximately 11 by 10 by 9 inches and weighs only 17 pounds. As for the display, it has a basic black and white LCD display that shows input and output watts, battery percentage with icon, and time to charge and discharge. As for the inverter in the Pro, it sports an 800 watt pure sine inverter with 4 outlets and offers EcoFlow's proprietary X-Boost feature that allows you to run some appliances up to twice the rated wattage of the inverter. It does this by dropping the voltage to allow more amps. Fortunately, X-Boost can be easily disabled within the app. As for ways to charge, this has 4. First, it offers AC charging up to 940 watts and claims that the Pro will charge from dead to full in just over an hour. And just like a lot of other modern power stations and the rest of the River series, there is no external charger. The charger's built in. You just need this power cord to plug into the wall or another gas or propane generator. The Pro supports up to 220 watts of solar from 11 to 50 volts and will charge this model under perfect conditions in about 4 hours. You also get a car charging cable that's good for 100 watts max of 12 volt car charging, which means 0 to full in about 8 hours. Last but not least, you can charge the Pro via 100 watt USB-C power delivery charging. This too will take about 8 hours from empty to full. Note that both the AC charging and car charging maximum speeds can both be adjusted within the app. So if you don't want to charge at 900 watts AC or you don't want to charge at 8 amps through the DC, then you can actually knock this down so it won't blow circuits or for whatever reason you might want to slow down your charging. As for 12 volt outputs, the Pro offers a 10 amp vehicle accessory socket along with a pair of 5521 barrel plug outputs rated at 3 amps each, with all 3 regulated at 12.6 volts. The max output for all the DC on this is 126 watts. As for USB output types, the Pro supports 3 standard USB ports good for charging up your dinosaurs and a single 100 watt bi-directional USB-C power delivery port. As for other features, the River 2 series does support the EcoFlow app for remote access, which allows the user to adjust charge rates, timeouts, and enable or disable that X-Boost feature I talked about. And I've covered this app in great detail in my previous EcoFlow videos, but here's a quick peek. The app for EcoFlow is pretty darn good. It actually works with all their products on all the same screen, which is kind of nice because I have pretty much almost everything that EcoFlow makes. And even their power kits, everything is on the one app on the one screen. So I can actually go back and you can see right there all the different products I have logged into my app. Now it does require online access in order for all this to work. Now you can run an individual product one-on-one with just using Bluetooth, which doesn't require you to be online, but a lot of the features are missing. So you can see here it shows you input, output watts, the amount of time it's going to charge or discharge, and you can turn on the individual AC, DC, and you can also see what's coming in via solar or USB. And on the settings screen, you can set the AC charging speed to different levels depending on what you want, how fast you want the car input to charge, and if you want DC mode on solar or 12 volt, that's automatic. You can see here I turned X-Boost off for all my testing. It does allow you to set a minimum and maximum charge level for the battery if you want to extend the life. And down here at the bottom, you can see unit, screen, and AC timeouts. You can set those to whatever you want. And this is also how you do your firmware updates. So that's all there is to the app. Like I said, the app is very well designed. They do a lot of updates on it. It updates almost every time I use it. As for the warranty, EcoFlow does offer a class-leading 5-year manufacturer's warranty across the board for all River 2 series products. And of course, I took the EcoFlow River 2 Pro here into my secret laboratory where I performed all kinds of crazy experiments on it, including, yes, of course, let's all say it together, a double-fisted bang, bang battery capacity test. As for the results of the DC battery capacity test, this unit scored 670 watt-hours out of 768 for an impressive 87%. The results of the AC battery capacity test, we were able to pull 640 watt-hours out of 768 for a respectable 83%. I'm actually pretty blown away by these numbers because both the River 2 and River 2 Max, their smaller siblings here, scored quite poorly on both of these tests with results all in the low 70th percentile. We're seeing a 10 to 15 point increase in the Pro, probably due to the last 6 months of firmware updates. The River 2 and River 2 Max were first production models when I got my hands on them, and I even said in that review there was a possibility that EcoFlow would fix the capacity issue via firmware, and it certainly seems like they did. Kudos to you, EcoFlow. Pure sine wave check under load. I have the Pro under a 500 watt load. Let's see how it's doing. 119 volts, 60 hertz, and a perfectly clean sine wave. Inverter capacity test. This is where we determine how much can we pull out of the Pro's 800 watt pure sine inverter. Now I did go into the EcoFlow app and I turned off the X Boost feature. We don't ever test power stations using the voltage drop feature because to me that's kind of a cheat. It can also damage certain appliances, certain electronics. I recommend everybody leave it turned off unless you absolutely need it for like a coffee machine or something, because 800 watts will be fine for a little tiny coffee machine. But if you have a larger one, say a 1200 watt coffee machine, you can turn the X Boost feature on and this will still brew your coffee just a little bit slower, but I wouldn't recommend using the X Boost feature on most things you're going to plug into the AC inverter. So we always leave that stuff turned off. We test the actual 800 watt inverter itself to see how good it is. Okay, we're watching this number right here. It says 850 watts. You can watch over here the voltage and sine wave as we increase the power. Okay, we're starting at about 830 watts. Let's take it up to 1030 watts. It's still going. And right under 1100 watts, that's when it finally conks out. So it looks like when you take the EcoFlow over 1000 watts, it's just going to conk out on you, and that is good. This next test is the 5-minute sustained cooling test, where we push the inverter in this at its 800 watt limit for at least 5 minutes to determine, does anything strange happen? Does it start smelling funny or smoking or drinking or carrying on or acting up in any way we don't want it to? And there you have it, 5 minutes at 830 watts, no problems. We're gonna try this test at 930 watts and see if it'll make it 5 minutes. Thou shall not pass. It died right after 30 seconds. So just how loud is the inverter when it's running at its maximum speed? Around 46 decibels, not bad at all, nice and quiet. So what's the maximum charge rate when charging from the grid or AC wall power? It's about 880 watts. 45 decibels, so that's pretty much identical to the result we got while it was discharging. So it seems like the noise charging and discharging are about the same. This is a very quiet power station. I don't think the amount of noise it makes would really bother anybody unless your head is literally right next to it. Okay, now we're gonna do the max charge rate test from the DC input. So right now I have it running 12.8 volts into the solar input in the back, which is solar and 12 volt for if you want to charge from a cigarette lighter. You can see here we're pulling 8 amps, which is exactly as designed, and it is inputting about 94 watts. Okay, let's bump this voltage up to standard solar panel voltage, which is 18 volts. You can see at 19 volts, it is still limiting the current to 8 amps for a total of 144 watts. Let's go ahead and take this up to upper solar panel voltage around 24 volts. You can see at 24 volts, it still limits the input current to 8 amps for a total of 196 watts. Now it does say in the user manual that it will accept up to 50 volts at 220 watts. So let's go ahead and crank it up to 50 volts. Okay, 50 volts, it tops out at 4.3 amps or 218 watts. So this means at this maximum rate, the fastest you can charge this would be 3.5 hours from the perfect solar. So let's assume you have the perfect solar array set up that's inputting the maximum amount of solar into this product as possible. At the 220 watt rate, you can expect about 3.5 hours to charge it from dead. Now let's see what the upper voltage cutoff rate is. So we're waiting to see this number go to 0. We want to see how high can we actually take the input voltage before the EcoFlow shuts it down. We do get an overload error at 52 volts, so there is not much leeway in this. It sounds like it starts back up around 51 volts. So the hard limit is going to be 50 volts on this product. Now what about USB charging? You can actually charge the River 2 Pro via 100 watt power delivery USB-C. So I have a 100 watt power delivery charger plugged into the wall coming in with a 5 amp cable. Do note, if you want to charge a 100 watt power delivery, make sure you have a 5 amp cable, otherwise it's not going to charge at its max rate. You can see here we're charging at 96 watts, which is perfect because there's always a few watts lost to heat. Your next question is going to be simultaneous charging. Can you charge this product from multiple sources at the same time? So we do have USB power delivery coming in at 100 watts. What happens if we turn on the solar charging? So let's go ahead and hook up a solar panel. This is my fake simulated solar. We're going to go ahead and turn that on like we actually are running a solar panel. Will it accept solar at the same time it accepts power delivery? Doesn't look like it does. Let's unplug the power delivery and let the solar kick in. Okay, the solar's kicking in. Let's plug the power delivery charger back in. Nope, you cannot simultaneous charge from solar and USB at the same time. How about from wall and USB at the same time? Is there any rate difference? Let's find out. Okay, we're now plugged into the wall. This thing is charging at 883 watts. Let's plug in the power delivery charger. Does it increase? Does it matter? Does it do anything? Nope, it makes no difference whatsoever. So there is no simultaneous AC and USB. Now what about AC and solar? Okay, since we already have the AC power going, let's turn on our solar panels again. Looks like no change. So while you're plugged into AC wall power, it does not solar charge. Let's unplug AC wall charging, let the solar kick in, and then unplug the AC back in. Because sometimes there is an order. Sometimes you plug one in and then the other, it'll just take whatever you plugged in first. We want to see, does it prioritize AC or solar? Okay, there we are, 48 volts at 4.5 amps, charging at 200 watts. Let's plug in AC wall power. I hear the click. That immediately stops the solar charging. All right, I can tell you right now by looking at these numbers, there is no simultaneous charging on this product. So you can charge from solar, or you can charge from USB, or you can charge from AC wall power, but you cannot combine them at all. You have to pick your poison and choose only one method of charging. So what about solar pass-through charging? While you're charging with solar panels, can you use the inverter and USB and 12 volt while you're charging with solar? Now, every EcoFlow product, in fact, pretty much any product worth its weight in salt will have this feature. So this is pass-through charging. It's charging from solar at 220 watts. And yes, it is outputting AC power. You can see by this being lit up. And yes, the USB works. And in fact, we can turn on the 12 volt as well, and that works just fine. Now let's test the built-in UPS feature. This does have a UPS relay built in, which means if I unplug the power from the wall, say the power goes out, and you have a laptop plugged in, is it gonna stay on? So let's test that feature next. Now onto the most controversial test I'm gonna do for the entire video. That is the UPS test. Now, I understand that EcoFlow calls this an EPS, emergency power supply. That's a made-up fake term. An EPS doesn't exist. It's something they made up because some of their products can't switch fast enough to keep sensitive computers on. So they tell you it's just an emergency power supply. So if you have an emergency, you turn the inverter on, you plug your stuff in, you can use it. And if the power goes out, well, hey, sometimes your stuff will stay on, sometimes it won't. I've had a lot of people complain that I do this test when the battery's not charged, and that makes it unfair. That's absolutely not true either. if this cannot switch over while the battery's charging, it does you no good in a blackout. Because think about this. If you're working on your computer, you have this plugged into the wall and it's acting as an uninterruptible power supply. It's supposed to switch over and keep your laptop running if the power goes out. Now let's assume that the battery's full, the power goes out, you're running your computer or whatever for 30 minutes, the power comes back on. This battery is going to be drained a certain number of percent. It's not going to be full. Now, anybody who's lived in the Midwest or been through a real thunderstorm knows that oftentimes during a storm, the power will go out several times. It doesn't usually just go out once and then that's it. Sometimes it'll go out 3, 4. I've had it go out a half dozen times here on this property alone during monsoon season. We got lots of lightning strikes. Every time there's a lightning strike nearby, all the power in the house goes out for like a split second. All the computers, the TV shuts off. Everybody in the house goes, oh, again. You got to go reset all your clocks in the microwave and all that other junk. So I put UPS batteries all over the house now so we don't have to deal with it as much. But sometimes it'll happen several times in one storm. So if you're using your computer or whatever other device, say you're watching television plugged into this, power goes out for 15 minutes, it's going to knock it down to like 95%. So when the power comes back on, it's going to start charging the battery again. While the battery's charging, there's a pretty good chance the power will go out again. So the way I see it is you test this when it's not 100% and it tells you how good it's engineered. Did they cut any corners? Did they cheapen out on the relay? Did they just not have it set up properly? Because you shouldn't have to have this charged to 100% for it to switch over quickly. If it switches over at 20 milliseconds at 100%, it should switch over at 20 milliseconds when it's at 1%. I know that was a big rant, but I get a lot of comments saying you're supposed to test this at 100% and only 100%. You're not supposed to use a laptop that's 15 years old because it's got resistors and capacitors in it that'll keep the power on if you... Okay, this is a very sensitive laptop. There is no battery in it. See this big hole? There's no battery. People are saying because as a power brick, there's capacitors in here and it will buffer and it won't shut off. I'm guaranteeing you, if it's over 30 milliseconds, this computer's gonna shut off. Okay, I've done this test for years. I know some are new viewers and don't realize I've been doing this test for years, but let me tell you, it's either gonna work or it's not gonna work. I haven't tested this yet. This is the first time. You guys are seeing it the same time I'm seeing it because I wanna be shocked either way. I know some of EcoFlow's products in the past have not passed this test. Then you get the product in your hand, you plug your computer in and it works fine for you. Whether it works for you or not in the field, it might be different, but this is my real-time test right now. So end rant, let's get on with the test. When I hit this button, the power is going to stop going into the River 2 Pro. Is my laptop going to continue to run off of their EPS? Let's find out. 3, 2, 1. Oh, how about that? It works this time. So let me go ahead and turn the power back on. First of all, I want to show you, I'm going to zoom in the second test, show you the screen, show you that I'm not cheating this and it's actually working. So let's go ahead and turn the power back on. You can see right there, the battery is now again charging from the wall at 900 plus watts. The laptop is taking 28 watts out of that to power. You can see there the laptop is on and working just fine. So let's go ahead and push the switch again. I'll put it right here. You can see it as I push it. 3, 2, 1. There you go. It switched over just fine. Now the input watts are 0, output watts are unchanged. Laptop is still running. And just to prove to you that I do have this plugged in to the actual inverter, there you go. So if you're curious exactly how fast in milliseconds the switchover time is, I have this new oscilloscope. I've used it in 1 or 2 other videos before. It allows me to capture the sine wave as it changes when I turn off the power. So basically I capture this in there to let me measure exactly how many milliseconds it takes to switch over, and it's pretty impressive. You can see the 2 green vertical bars measuring the time that the power was down between the waves. There you have it, 15.2 milliseconds was the switchover time for this particular test. Next test, our DC output rate check. We're going to start with the 12-volt cigarette lighter style port. You can see it is running a constant voltage of 12.6 volts. That is regulated, and this is across the EcoFlow product line. They are all regulated at 12.6 volts. And as you can see here, it can handle 10 amps and it is still outputting 12 volts. Now as for testing the USB ports, that's completely unnecessary. We already tested the 100 watt power delivery during charging, so it means it's gonna output 100 watts as well. The other 3 ports on this are just dumb USB-A ports, voltage fixed at 5 volts. They are not quick charge ports. no point in testing those. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the musician's favorite test, which is the amp interference test. This is where we determine, does the River 2 Pro have a clean enough inverter to run a power amp? Now, there may be many situations. Say you want to go rock out at a campfire or a very small venue. You might want to take this with you so you get a couple hours of playtime with your tiny little practice amp, or a PA system, karaoke, anything like that that has speakers in it. You want to make sure that the power supply isn't buzzy and noisy and doesn't come out through the speakers, because it kind of ruins the experience. And this test will also let you know, is it clean enough for a possible use for ham radio equipment? So let's go ahead and find out. I have not done this test yet. All I have to do is press the inverter button. It's going to send power into the amp. All the knobs are turned up, but nothing's plugged in. 3, 2, 1. All right, you hear that? It is pretty buzzy. Now, just to prove to you that it is the power supply and not something else in the room or nearby, I now have it plugged into AC wall power, and now listen to it. So that makes the River 2 Pro on the not recommended list if you're going to use it with any kind of amplifier system. So what do I think about the EcoFlow River 2 Pro? We have seen massive improvements in both battery capacity and fan noise in this current Pro model. Unlike the River 2 Max in my previous review, the Pro model here did pass the UPS laptop test with flying colors and with a real world measured 15 millisecond switchover time. And that 15 millisecond result is much better than the 30 millisecond EPS that EcoFlow claims. You can legitimately use this as a low latency, uninterruptible power supply to keep a computer online regardless of the stability of the grid power coming in. And for gripes, there's really not a lot to gripe about feature-wise, except the lack of USB quick charge ports and no wireless charging pad. They also wasted no expense on a fancy SOS light, so no flagging down our little buddies upstairs. Now these are features you probably would expect on a top-of-the-range model. And it is a minor bummer that the Pro fails the amp interference test and doesn't support any kind of simultaneous charging. Now let's get something straight here. EcoFlow is not an entry-level brand. You can find models around this size all day long on Amazon for hundreds of dollars less by fly-by-night companies you can't even pronounce. However, there is some serious bang for the buck here, since the Pro does offer a 10-year battery that charges crazy fast with a 5-year warranty, and the price is still reasonable. EcoFlow also seems to have the least complaints of the big three when it comes to customer service. Product price: the 800-watt River 2 Pro retails for $599, but of course, being a viewer of the HOBOTECH channel, you're not going to pay that. In fact, I do have an exclusive discount code that will knock a significant chunk of change off the price of this product, just because you're an awesome viewer. The link to the product, along with that discount code, which you do have to use together, will be down in the description of this video. So who is this product aimed at? Now, this is a very small portable generator. It's going to be for portable power while you're camping, or to supply power to small devices like laptops, televisions, things like that, fans during a blackout, or if you're at a remote location without power. These are not meant to run residential refrigerators, air conditioners, or heaters, although this Pro model can handle those for a limited time if they're smaller appliances. The Pro should have no problem handling most personal computers, TVs, other mid-range appliances, as long as you keep it under 800 watts. Now, certain appliances over 800 watts can be ran on this, such as coffee machines and hot plates and things like that, if you activate that X-Boost feature. But use that feature at your own risk, because it can cause damage to certain appliances if it has like a computer chip or a motor inside of it. As for recommended solar, the Pro supports up to 220 watts of solar. Your best bet there is, since these are portable devices, is to get an appropriate EcoFlow portable panel. Now, you can use any EcoFlow panel up to that 220 watt bifacial panel, which is actually pretty excellent. I got a couple of those I will review eventually. If you want to check out other less expensive options for solar panels, or you want something that's more permanent than a folding portable panel, you can click on solar kits on my website, the same place, and see what I got there. So if you're interested in this product, the link and discount code is going to be at the bottom of this video. I'm also going to go ahead and pin it in the comments. I'm going to put a link here at the bottom of the screen that you can type in, along with a QR code that you can scan on any mobile device that'll take you on over to the EcoFlow store page, where you can check out the new River 2 Pro. Thanks for watching. If you learned something today, don't forget to give me that thumbs up below. And if you're not a subscriber already, you know what to do. That's it for now. Till next time.
Odin commands you to like and subscribe. And clean my litter box.
If your search for a Sultan is a pain in the neck, go to YouTube and watch HOBOTECH, cause he's a testing this and he's a probing that. He's even been probing Odin's cat. If you wanna get all the Sultan back, go to HOBOTECH. Yeah!
RV Golf Guy. Vaughn Rupp. Brian Luters. John Jason Soroka. Dr. Steve Eisenberg.